Have you ever felt that you're clinging on to something that's already let go of you? Maybe you've been trying to convince yourself that things will get better, that this is simply a difficult patch, that the person you once fell in love with is still in there somewhere. The truth is, knowing when to cling on and when to walk away can be one of the hardest decisions you'll ever face. But here's what no one tells you. Identifying the indicators early doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It implies you're listening to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. In this video, we're going deep into 7 clear and powerful signals that it might be time to move on from your relationship. These aren't simply surface-level red flags. These are the indications people frequently overlook until it's too late. Let's talk about them so you don't have to learn them the hard way. 1. You're constantly emotionally drained. Let's start with one of the most striking and painful signs: emotional weariness. When you're in a relationship, you're expected to experience a sense of comfort and security. Your relationship should be your safe spot, not your source of perpetual worry. But when you find yourself emotionally worn out more frequently than not, it's an indication that something is definitely awry. Maybe you're constantly overthinking, rehearsing disputes in your thoughts, or second, guessing your words and actions just to avoid disagreement. Perhaps you're continually striving to keep the peace, sacrificing your own sentiments to prevent friction. Or worse, you've begun to repress your emotions totally because you worry how your partner would react. This level of emotional exhaustion doesn't happen overnight. It grows slowly, like a leak in the foundation, until one day you wake up feeling disconnected, empty, and unsure of who you are anymore. And here's the truth. Love is not supposed to drain you. Yes, relationships take effort. Yes, there will be bad times. But if the majority of your emotional energy is going into just surviving the relationship, navigating disagreements, settling concerns, tiptoeing around moods, then it's not love you're in. It's an emotional endurance test. And no one should have to live like that. You deserve a relationship that fills your cup, not empties it. A love that restores you tranquilly, not robs you of it. Emotional weariness isn't a phase, it's a red signal, one that shouldn't be disregarded. 2. Communication feels impossible or pointless. Communication is the heartbeat of any healthy relationship. It's how we connect, understand one another, solve problems, and become closer. But what happens when that heartbeat starts to fade? When every interaction feels like a war, or worse, like talking to a wall? If you've reached a point when honest communication feels impossible or entirely worthless, it's a significant warning sign. Maybe you try to convey how you feel, but you're constantly stopped, rejected, or made to feel like you're overreacting. Maybe your words are misinterpreted, or you're treated with defensiveness instead of understanding. You go away from conversations feeling more misunderstood than before you spoke up. Or maybe the silence is the problem, the frigid distance. You stop bringing things up because you know it will simply lead to an argument. Or worse, no reaction at all. You begin to censor yourself. You tell your pals instead of your lover. You learn to keep it all in because, somewhere along the way, it just became easier. That's not healthy. That's emotional solitude. True communication is more than just speaking. It's about being heard. It's about feeling secure to communicate your truth without fear of criticism, dismissal, or retaliation. It's about finding answers, not keeping score. And when communication routinely breaks down, when every conversation feels like you're speaking 2 different languages, or that you're the only one trying to bridge the gap, it's not a phase. It's a pattern. And over time, that tendency erodes trust, intimacy, and connection. You can't construct a future with someone who won't even meet you in the present. A relationship without communication is like a home without a foundation. It may look all right from the outside, but it won't survive the storm. 3. Your needs and boundaries are ignored. In every healthy relationship, your wants and boundaries should matter. Not just to you, but to your partner as well. We all have emotional needs, whether it's feeling loved, respected, heard, supported, or simply being given time and space to be ourselves. And we all have boundaries, those personal restrictions we create to defend our tranquility, our identity, and our well-being. But when your needs are repeatedly disregarded, or your boundaries are constantly pushed, dismissed, or blatantly violated, it causes a subtle but powerful form of damage. It informs you, on a deep level, that your voice doesn't count, that your comfort is less essential than your partner's convenience, that your emotions are negotiable. Maybe you've explicitly conveyed what you need: a bit extra quality time, some emotional comfort, or even simply a courteous tone during disagreements. But nothing changes, or worse, you're told you're too sensitive or demanding for even bringing it up. Or maybe you've said no to something that made you uncomfortable, and your boundary was brushed off, joked about, or ignored totally. That's not just inconsiderate, it's a lack of emotional safety. And here's the painful truth: love without respect for your limits is not love. It's control, it's greed masked as affection. In a true collaboration, your needs don't have to compete for space. They're treasured, they're seen. Even if your partner doesn't entirely grasp them at first, they make an effort, because you matter to them. When that effort isn't there, when you always feel like you're asking for too much, just by asking to be treated right, that's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of their unwillingness to show up for you in the way you deserve. You should never have to shrink yourself, quiet your demands, or forfeit your boundaries just to be loved. Real love meets you where you are and grows with you from there. 4. You feel more lonely in the relationship than you did alone. One of the most devastating sensations in a relationship is feeling lonely when you're still with someone. You might believe that loneliness is something you only feel while you're single, but the terrible reality is that many people feel more alienated in their relationship than they ever did when they were on their own. It's a quiet type of loneliness. It doesn't shout, but it eats away at your heart every day. You can be lying next to someone and feel utterly invisible. You're surrounded by another person, yet your inner world feels empty, distant, and unacknowledged. You want for connection, closeness, and understanding, yet all you're confronted with is an emptiness. This isn't just about physical distance. It's about emotional distance. It's about being in the same room as your lover, but feeling like you're from two whole different universes. You might spend hours together, but have nothing worthwhile to say. You may feel like you're offering your heart, but it's being received with apathy or worse, silence. Maybe you've attempted to convey your thoughts, but each time your spouse shrugs you off, diminishes your experience, or becomes defensive. The attempts to get closer, to bridge the distance, only seem to make the divide greater. You might even begin to withdraw from the relationship yourself, because staying emotionally engaged feels hard. It's as if no matter how much you try, your partner just doesn't see or comprehend you. When you're alone, at least there's an acceptance of loneliness. You have power over your own area, your own ideas, your own feelings. But in a relationship where you feel more lonely than you did before, you're left wondering your place, your worth, and your role. This kind of emotional isolation takes a toll on your self-esteem and your sense of identity. You begin to question whether there's something wrong with you for feeling this way. You may tell yourself that you're being unfair or that it's your fault for not making things work. But the truth is, no one deserves to feel alone in a relationship. You should be allowed to communicate your feelings without feeling like you're an inconvenience. You deserve to be seen, understood, and appreciated by the person you love. Loneliness in a relationship isn't simply about physical absence. It's a reflection of a deeper emotional detachment that can't be ignored. If you're more alone in a relationship than you were when single, it's not a sign of weakness or inferiority. It's a clue that something has moved in the bond, and that bond may need to be re-evaluated for your mental and emotional well-being. 5. There are recurring patterns of toxic behavior. When you first fall in love, everything feels ideal. The chemistry, the affection, the connection. But with time, couples go through normal hardships. Disagreements happen and disputes develop. That's part of being human. But there's a vast difference between occasional fights and persistent, poisonous behavior. Toxicity in a relationship doesn't necessarily announce itself with screaming matches or spectacular conflicts. Sometimes it's subtle, sneaky, even. It can emerge in the form of gaslighting, where you're led to question your own reality, your emotions, or your sanity. It can show up as manipulation, where your partner plays on your anxieties or guilt, trips you into doing things for them that you wouldn't normally do. Maybe your partner employs silent treatment to punish you, refusing to speak to you for days until you apologize, even if you did nothing wrong. Perhaps they twist your comments in a way that makes you feel like you're the one who initiated the problem, leaving you feeling guilty or inadequate. Or it might be jealousy veiled as care, where they continually monitor your phone or limit your freedom because they claim it's out of love. Even though it feels more like control, over time, these actions develop a routine, and you start to feel like you're walking on eggshells. You grow frightened to voice your thoughts, to communicate your sentiments, or simply to exist as yourself. You try to explain the behavior because it's just a phase, or they didn't mean it. But deep down, you know it's starting to take a toll on your mental and emotional health. What's even more devastating is when poisonous behavior isn't addressed. The apologies become empty, the vows to change become meaningless, and the cycles of hurt continue. You may start to feel like you're locked in an endless loop of hope and heartbreak. You forgive, then you forgive again, believing that things will get better. But each time, the pattern reappears. Toxic conduct isn't love. It's manipulation, it's control, it's someone trying to make you feel smaller, less important, and less worthy than you truly are. It frequently leaves you questioning your own self-worth, constantly wondering whether you're the one who's too sensitive or overreacting. But here's the truth: abuse, whether emotional, psychological, or verbal, is never your fault. Toxic conduct can wear you down to the point where you begin to mistrust your own needs, desires, and sense of self. You might even start rationalizing your partner's conduct, thinking that's simply who they are, and that somehow you should tolerate it. But deep down, you know that you don't feel safe, you don't feel respected, and you don't feel loved. And no amount of love should ever come at the cost of your mental well-being. If you find yourself locked in a relationship where toxic behaviors are a regular occurrence, it's time to rethink. You deserve a relationship where respect, decency, and understanding are the foundation, not control, manipulation, or emotional abuse. Patterns like these don't usually alter on their own, and sometimes the healthiest choice is to walk away, not because you've given up on love, but because you're choosing self-respect above hurt. 6. You're the only one fighting for the relationship is strong. Happy relationship is founded on shared effort. It requires both individuals to show up, participate, and be willing to put in the work, especially when circumstances become rough. But what happens when only one individual is doing all the fighting? What happens when you're the only one putting in the emotional effort, attempting to heal problems, and continually compromising to keep things afloat? If you're the only one battling for the relationship, that's a major red flag. Love should never feel like a single mission. It shouldn't be a one-person rescue effort where you're continuously attempting to save something that your spouse isn't invested in protecting too. You might be the one sending the texts first, plan the dates, beginning the tough conversations, or making all the sacrifices. You can be the one who's continually apologizing, even when you're not the one at fault, since you're frightened of losing them. You put forth the effort to work through challenges, but it feels like your partner's only contribution is waiting for things to fix themselves without lifting a finger. It starts to wear on you. You start to wonder if your efforts are even recognized, and slowly, you begin to feel like a caretaker instead of a companion. You're emotionally drained from carrying the weight of the relationship alone, while the other person appears satisfied to merely glide through. This imbalance can make you feel like you're chasing after something that's no longer there. You might keep convincing yourself that things will change, they'll eventually come around, or this is just a rough patch. But when you're the only one putting in the emotional work and your partner isn't even meeting you halfway, you have to ask yourself, is this really a relationship? Or am I just struggling to keep something alive that's already gone? Love requires reciprocity. It's not about keeping score, but about showing up for each other equally. When one person does all the work, when they're the only one who cares enough to address the damaged portions of the relationship, it becomes more of a one-sided commitment than a collaboration. In a partnership, both people should be equally invested in growth, healing, and constructing something wonderful together. If you're the only one attempting to make it work, to compromise, and to nurture the relationship, then you're devoting your time, energy, and heart to someone who isn't willing to do the same. This creates a toxic dynamic where you feel overworked, unappreciated, and ultimately alone, even though you're still in the relationship. It's crucial to know that if you're the only one battling, it might be time to reassess if it's worth fighting for. A relationship is meant to be a collaborative effort, not a battle. You deserve someone who's going to fight for you as much as you fight for them. 7. You've grown, but the relationship hasn't. One of the most lovely things about being in a relationship is the possibility for growth. Individually, as well as collectively, relationships should evolve just as we do. As we grow older, we create new goals, new ideals, new perspectives, and even new hobbies. We start to understand ourselves better, become more self-aware, and ideally, we want a partner who helps us to grow alongside them. But what happens when you develop, adapt, and become a better version of yourself, and yet the relationship you're in remains stagnant? At first, it could appear harmless. A few little distinctions, a few conflicting interests. But as time goes on, you realize that the progress you're experiencing isn't being represented in the relationship. You've become more emotionally mature, more secure, and more self-assured, but your partner remains mired in old behaviors, with little desire to change or grow alongside you. You've learned more about what you want in life, what you need from your spouse, and what limits you're no longer ready to overlook. But when you convey these changes, it feels like your partner isn't willing to meet you at your new level. You may find yourself feeling frustrated, since no matter how much you progress, the relationship feels like it's still working on a level that you've long ago outgrown. Your interactions feel repetitive. You're no longer excited by the things that formerly drew you closer. Your personal growth feels acknowledged or even restricted. It's like you're pulled in one way while your spouse stays stuck in place. The future you imagine for yourself no longer fits with the future others seem comfortable with. This can appear in so many ways. Maybe you've gained a greater sense of self-worth and want a relationship that treats you with the same respect, but your spouse still ignores your feelings or takes you for granted. Maybe you've pursued your profession or personal ambitions, and you desire a partner who supports you, but they've showed little interest in your progress or success. Or perhaps you've outgrown certain patterns in the relationship, like bad communication, lack of effort, or emotional immaturity. And no matter how many times you try to address these issues, they stay the same. It's really hard to realize that you're developing, but the relationship isn't. You're evolving as an individual, but you're still locked in a partnership that doesn't support or encourage that progress. It can feel like you're being held back, or that you're bearing the weight of the relationship while attempting to go forward in your own life. It's crucial to remember that growth isn't only about evolving as a person. It's about growing together as a marriage. If one person is outgrowing the other, it might cause a disconnect. The link that once felt strong starts to feel flimsy. You may begin to wonder yourself, why am I still here? Am I waiting for anything to change? Or is this the reality we've come to? In a partnership, progress should be a joint process. A relationship should challenge both people to be better, support each other's objectives, and help each other progress in healthy, good ways. But when one person matures and the other remains stagnant, it can build emotional distance and ultimately to a terrible realization: you've outgrown the relationship. You don't have to stay in a relationship just because of the time invested or the memories shared. If your growth isn't being matched by your spouse, or if your relationship no longer matches with who you are becoming, it might be time to ask yourself whether it's still benefiting you. It could be time to let go of the connection so you can continue evolving into the person you're meant to be, without holding on to something that no longer fits. If you saw yourself in any of these signals, I want you to know this: you're not insane. You're not broken, and you're absolutely not alone. Ending a relationship, especially one filled with history, memories, and love, is tremendously hard. But sometimes staying is tougher. You're free to choose peace over pressure. You're entitled to move away from what hurts, even if it once made you happy. And you're entitled to protect your heart, because no one else can do that for you. If this video helped you obtain any clarity, leave a comment below. Let us know which sign resonated most with you. And don't forget to subscribe for more honest conversations about love, healing, and self-worth. You deserve a relationship that doesn't only seem wonderful on the outside, but feels safe, nurturing, and whole on the inside. Thanks for watching, and remember,